Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
James Bowe on the Corner Bookstore on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And James is a Canadian author, author of many books. And what surprised me a lot, he's been blogging for over 20 years, so he's a writer extraordinaire. And his main specialty is sci-fi and young adult. So let's bring James in and figure out what makes sense here.
Hi there.
Hey, James, I'm going to start first with the blogs. I started looking at your blogs on your website, and they keep going and going and going and going. And it's almost like you started writing in the late 1990s and never stopped.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been writing for most of my life through high school and university. I liked writing fan fiction, just stories set in the universe of Doctor Who, just for myself and for my circle of friends. I guess it comes from the fact that my parents are both librarians. My mother is a writer, but it was not something that I saw as, my profession. I knuckled down for a real job as an urban planner and went to university for that. But that fell apart. So,
yeah, best laid plans, right?
Exactly.
So you started writing a long time ago. And then all of a sudden now your two latest ones, the Sunrunners, and then you're also a contributing author and editor of Tales from the Silence. Those are sci-fi young adult books. Is that pretty much the genre that you write in nowadays?
Yes. I also have some young adult fantasy novels. Those were one of the first that got published. But yeah, I've always had a love of science fiction and fantasy, and the Sunrunners has been a project I've been working on for about 10 years now. So I'm really pleased to have it out in the world and out in hopefully readers' hands, and that having people enjoy it.
I notice that I watch movies that are in the future, whatever amount of time that may be. In some cases, they have cars that look like they're back in the 2000s. Sometimes they have other things that really do look neat and probably are there. But your books take place, about 100 plus years from now?
Yeah, the Sunrunners is set in a near future where the Earth does not solve climate change. they just push back the consequences for a while, long enough that they're able to establish colonies throughout the inner solar system. Unfortunately, uh, the the consequences of climate change catch up to them, and that collapses human civilization on Earth, leaving the various colonies in the inner solar system on their own in various states of self-sufficiency, or in the case of Mercury and the story of the Sunrunners, not at all. So how do they deal with the fact that the Earth isn't there to help or meddle? That's the crux of the whole Silent Earth sequence of the Sunrunners and Tales from the Silence.
Now, Tales from the Silence has about a dozen authors in it, you being one of them, but you're also the editor of that. How is this like an anthology, or is this
Yes. Yeah, that came together over the past year and a half. I was working on getting the Sunrunners ready for publication, and the way I write is I tend to throw a lot of things against the wall and see what stick. I tend to sort of ask questions and try to find the most interesting answers, which expands the universe. And so my universe expanded. And so I had also stories set on Venus and Mars, and the on the Jupiter moons, and I wanted to see them in print as well. But there were a couple of short stories. I wasn't going to be able to send them out to publish them at the same time as the Sunrunners, unless I went directly with the publisher and printed them at the same time. So I needed to put together more stories, and I thought that was a great opportunity to reach out to the writing community that I know and I'm friends with in the science fiction young adult communities here. Even some of my old friends in Doctor Who fandom, and asked them to contribute and play in my sandbox, which they did, and it was a lot of fun, just sort of getting these different viewpoints and different storylines together, and seeing how they built on each other, and created something that was more than the sum of its parts.
sounds interesting?
Yes.
Your writing ability now compared to, let's say, 5, 8, 10 years ago, how long does it take you to conceptualize and start writing and actually have something for somebody to edit compared to
It can vary. The Sunrunners, for example, the initial idea came late in 2013. I just had this idea of it's almost the first line. Almost the first line came to me as Frida Koenig was a crown princess that wanted to be an engineer, and it was just that idea of this very privileged and royal individual wanting to have a career that was a lot more down to earth, so to speak, and exploring the world and building up a draft, building up the story into a novel format. That took a few years. And then, of course, you're in the process of trying to get that story out to publishers, and any author will tell you, as if you're starting out or even in the middle of your career, uh, sending it out and getting it rejected is a process that is long, arduous, frustrating, and can take a while. But if you persist and are lucky, I was very fortunate to find a home with Shadowpaw Press, and work with Ed, my editor, and put this together and have it out this past month. So it's been a long journey.
Okay, when you start looking at editing a book like this, it's 100 years or so, 50 years in the future. When we look at, let's say, a murder mystery or a romance or something, totally different. Now you have a situation where there isn't some city that you can Google and get an idea of what the streets are running back and forth. This is all being created in your mind. So the editor has to work with you on the character development, the locations, and all the rest of that. How difficult is that in something that's really and truly in the future?
It's a lot of fun, really, and it's a lot of well, Ed was my publishing editor, but I had many other editors through this process. My wife, Erin Bowe, worked with me, and we exchanged manuscripts. She's a fellow writer, so we exchanged manuscripts, and we gave each other suggestions. I met with other authors, friends of mine, and let them see the early manuscript and took in their suggestions. Um, if you're in a science fiction community like this, a lot of these ideas are already out there. It's just what you do with them. I can say that the original idea of they're called latitude towns, or towns moving on rails across Mercury to stay on the dark side of the planet out of the direct sunlight. The initial inspiration of that came from Kim Stanley Robinson's novel 2312, where he envisioned the city of Terminator being on these rails, and the sun's heat on the rails expanded the rails, which physically kept pushing the city ahead of the dawn. I took that idea and ran with it, made these things mobile so they could run ahead into the far dark. But I made sure to show my work by saying they were operating on Robinson rails, and specifically citing, saying, named for the renowned 21st century philosopher Kim Stanley Robinson, who envisioned. So I made sure to show my work, so shall we say.
And then when you get down to the end of everything and you're proofreading, has that process been collapsed a lot compared to, say, 5 years ago before COVID?
Well, I would say it hasn't changed much for me in terms of the final line edits and stuff like that. The editors still come show you, make their changes, and they hand you a draft that you have to go through and approve. And at that point, you're really running against a deadline anyway. So it's the process is very much hurry up and wait. And at that point, it's hurry up. So it's always been a bit of a drop everything and get this done type of thing.
Is your publisher handling all your marketing?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm here because of them, and thanks, Ed, and thank you for having me. That's one thing that traditional publishers have over independent publishing. Not to denigrate the work of independent publishers who are working really hard to get their stories out there. If you're able to go with a traditional publisher who takes on the risk themselves, you really do benefit from the work that they are able to put into getting the stories out into the hands of readers.
I guess the typical way most of us start out, we write a book and then we end, I'm going to have a second book and then maybe a third, but we really don't start marketing the books until after they're actually physically in our hands. And then you might happen to mention it on social media, or you may have to have some event at a local place and things like that. So that whole process of somebody being responsible, but you still have your own responsibility, because I know you do book signings and you're at different events and things like that. So there's a combination of both the publishing world helping you market your book and you being on a podcast or in this case live TV in order to help your image and your works out there. So what platforms do you personally like to use to market your books?
Well, I still have a blog from the days when blogging was cool and not sort of wiped out by social media. If you visit me at bojamesbow.ca. I've always treated that more as a writing journal, and if people wanted to tag along and see what I was doing, all the better. But I've been out in the community through Facebook, through Blue Sky. I believe there's some links available on this below. So, I've not really thought of it in terms of marketing. I mean, when the time comes, yes, I market through my social media, but it's for me, social media is more about participating in the community of writers, of readers out there, and making those connections. Um, it's a big challenge to market anything in this day and age. But what you can do is you make connections, you make friendships, and you get your name out there, and that's an ongoing process that never stops and really starts. If you want it to be effective, you need to start a couple of years ago.
Okay, but you also hired a publicist, Mickey, right?
Yes, well, Ed hired the publicist, Chatterpaw
And
Press, and this is a new experience for me. The previous publishers of mine did send me out to a couple of conferences or events, but we didn't do the podcast route. So this is the first time I've been on these sorts of podcasts or videos, and so it's a new experience and one I'm finding to be quite exciting and enjoyable.
now that you're an author of multiple books, are you seeing yourself more in the business end of being an author as opposed to being the writing end of an author?
Um, I mean, the writing end is always going to be what I love most about writing. If I, as long as I can get my words out to readers who will enjoy it, as long as I know that I'm being read, I feel that I've succeeded. So, I mean, my fiction may not be paying my bills, but because I do have a day job, but I am privileged to say that in my day job as a communications manager for a charitable land trust, I am also making a living through writing. So, um, for somebody who initially thought of being an urban planner and had that dream go away, uh, to fall into what I've been doing, enjoyed doing since high school, and still being able to make a living at it, even if it's not just with fiction, is an immense privilege that I feel very lucky to be able to do.
Okay, your books series wise, in other words, you have the Sun Runners. Is that going to become a series? I know you have another set of, I know you have at least one series of 3 or 4 books, if I remember right, going back through your website.
Yeah, I mean, the Sunrunners and Tales from the Silence are part of what I would call the Silent Earth universe. And there is a companion novel called The Cloud Riders, which, if I can get this published, it'll hopefully come out in 2026. It's set on Venus and Mars soon after the Earth falls silent, and it's kind of a interplanetary country mouse, city mouse. We have 2 characters from each planet that goes to the other planet and experiences it, and we compare and contrast the different cultures while also having a bit of a murder mystery happening. So um, I'm hopeful readers will find that very enjoyable.
So you have some new releases coming out. It's just one book in 2026, or you have something between now and then?
Well, my new adult fantasy, The Night Girl, which was published in 2019, is being re-released by Shadowpaw Press in May 2025. That's a story about a young woman who comes to the big city looking for a job and finds it as an administrative assistant for an employment agency that finds jobs for goblins and trolls. You could say her boss is a real troll, but actually he's a goblin and it's not that bad. So that's coming out in May of next year, and then it's a matter of finishing up my drafts and hopefully sending it out to Ed at Chattapon and see if he's interested. So fingers crossed.
Do you take advantage of AI in any way, shape, or form to help you with your writing or plot development or anything?
No. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and I sort of have a groove, and I don't really feel that AI is a part of that. And, you know, a part of me is a bit of a Luddite when it comes to this sort of thing. AI, in my opinion, was supposed to make our lives easier, not take our jobs away. So, um, I actually have a story on the go about that, but that's for another time.
Do you have any favorite authors you love to read in the science fiction world?
Well, I mean, I credit my mother for giving me a start in science fiction. She made a point of reading to me from her science fiction collection for authors from the 50s and the 60s and 70s, like Clifford Seamack. She also made sure to read to me J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, and but a big influence, of course, is in film and television. I've been a Doctor Who fan since 1978. I've watched all the Star Trek series, and enjoyed the science fiction movies and the superhero stuff from Marvel. So yeah, that you grow up with that becomes an influence that that I have to work with as a writer.
What are the biggest challenges you've found that they were difficult, but with your perseverance and diligence, you basically overcame them, and then it's no longer a problem. So that other people that are writers, new writers, are probably experiencing something similar to that, and it just seems like this is never going to end. I can't get this right. So, what are some of the challenges that you've overcome that you become now successful with?
Well, I mean, the big challenge is getting your work out to a publisher that'll publish it. As a new writer, you're going to get rejected a lot. That's just the way of things. And famous writers will tell you their rejection stories. Madeleine L'Engle's Wrinkle in Time won the Newbery, was rejected a dozen times before, even more than a dozen times before it was finally accepted. That sort of thing. And I encountered that with my books and book series. Um, and overcoming that is a matter of persistence and also of luck, of happening to find the right editor that wants exactly what you are offering. And the thing that you have under your control is the fact that you just keep on going. You have persistence. The unfortunate thing is, I mean, my books did get published, but and so I did overcome that obstacle. But the obstacles come back. There, you when you're doing something new, you sometimes have to find different publishers, and that can, and you have to go through the whole process again. So that can be wearing, but as long as you are persistent, uh, you will find your books will find a home.
How many publishers did you have to go to before you finally found one?
I lost count, honestly. Uh, um, with my first book, The Unwritten Girl, I did go through about a dozen publishers, but then I got lucky because then I had a author friend, Marcia Skripich, who knew an editor that she thought would very much like what I was writing and put us in touch. And that proved to be that proved to be true. So I ended up being published under the Dundurn Group with the editor Barry Cunningham, and I'm grateful, so grateful for that. The Sunrunners also went through this long process of getting close, finding, looking for publishers, submitting, waiting months, weeks, months, and then getting back letters that say it's like this is very good, but it's not quite what we're looking for. Um, and until you happen to find the right place. I managed to, I think one way I managed to get published through Shadowpaw Press. I mean, they were still taking they're still taking a risk in publishing the Sunrunners, as they do anything they publish, but they also have a self-publishing arm. And so when I came to them and showed them the Sunrunners and ascertained that they're interested, I said to them, look, if you take the risk on publishing the Sunrunners, I also have an anthology project, Tales from the Silence, I will self-publish this alongside this as a means of, of helping to build up both books. What do you think of that? And they liked that suggestion. So I took some extra steps in order to get across the finish line and make this work with Ed at Shadowpaw, and that's how I ended up with 2 books out past November.
Okay, so you have books that are traditionally published. You have at least one that's self-published. You have others that are self-published.
No, the Tales from the Silence is the only independent published anthology. Everything else has been traditionally published.
Now, did the publisher help you with your website, or is your website something you've developed over time with someone and it's just you tweak it periodically for updates and things?
Yeah. When I came out of university and during a recession and a period of government cutbacks, and ended up not going into urban planning, I ended up falling into the tech sector. And so this is in the late 90s when the internet was really starting to catch on. And so I learned a lot about coding websites and took that with me. So I've been doing a lot of this stuff on my own. So the website, you'll notice, has been my website, bojamesbow.ca, has posts that go back to 2002. I put my coding knowledge to work in putting this together, and so I was able to have this available when I was published through Shadowpaw Press. So if you can do that, if you have if you have the social media, or if you have the web presence, that's something that can help you as an author get your foot in the door. Yes.
Because I was one of the ones I looked at, and I saw it go back to 2002, as you said. That's why I said, blogging for over 20 years. So when I look at your books, your covers are pretty impressive. Is that something the publisher does, or do you have a designer you work with?
The publisher has been responsible for all of my books. The Sunrunners and Tales from the Silence, even one was traditionally published, and the Tales from the Silence was published through their self-publishing wing. Ed has a designer that works on the novels that he produces, and so I was able to ask for that particular designer and to come up with something that matched their design for the Sunrunners. So that was the first time I'd really worked with a designer about the cover for my book. In traditional publishing, you have a limited amount of control over what the publisher decides to use as your cover, but you do get some feedback. With Ed, I was able to get a decent amount of feedback, and I've also been very pleased with the designer that he works with. So, yeah.
Do you think that any of your books may end up as a movie one day?
I think that honestly would be like winning the lottery twice. It would be a nice to have, but I do, when I write these things, sometimes think of them in terms of scenes on film, and I even have put together soundtrack albums. But it's a competitive market to get these things published. It's a competitive market to get these things adapted. So I should be so lucky.
Yeah, one of the authors I like to read is Andy Weir. He wrote The Martian, and the movie.
Yes.
And the movie does a decent job, but the book is so much better, as it is with almost every book, that the movies just can't do it justice.
Yeah,
I think the
movies are a different medium, so you're looking for something different from that.
Yeah, and there's the book is so many pages, you can't put all that into a 2-hour movie. It's just almost impossible. But But there are some that are more exceptional than others. But uh, we talked earlier about some of the challenges you had. If you had to tell a new author who's working on their first book, what is one or two lessons learned that you have mastered? They say you do this and it's going to shorten your time, it's going to make you feel less stressful or whatever. But is there some advice you can give to a new author that would help them down the road a little bit faster?
I think the biggest advice is you have to be in this because you enjoy writing. You have to be in this uh, for its own sake to be able to create something that didn't exist before. Because it's rare for authors to be able to make a living based on their books alone. But that shouldn't be your only consideration. But as long as you do sort of do this for your creativity, for the desire to create something, desire to be read, um, you should have a good time of it. The other advice would be, as I've said before, if you want to be if you want to be out there, if you want your books out there, just don't give up. Keep looking for different publishers or look for different ways to get yourself published. You might consider serializing your novel on your website or something like that, or look at independent publishing options. That's become huge in these past few years, and you can definitely get yourself out there. Although, again, you have to temper your expectations, um, and you have to be in it because you just want to create something rather than you want to make money out of it.
Do you use anything other than Microsoft Word to do your writing?
Well, actually, my main software is Scrivener, which is this tool set up specifically for writers. The word processing side of it is really not much more than like a notepad type program, but it allows you to sort your scenes out. It allows you to keep notes on your characters. It's made by this software developer called Literature and Latte. And again, the program's name is Scrivener. It takes a little getting used to. It's not like it operates slightly different, quite differently from a Microsoft Word, which I do use when I'm writing press releases and stuff for my day job. But once you get used to it, it's very powerful. And that's what I've created most of my novels on for the past 10 years.
Okay. Is there a paragraph or two of a book that you'd like to share your writing uh, experience with, so the audience can get a feel for your science fiction writing?
I'll try and keep this as short as possible. I know readings, can be, uh, can go on for too long, but here's a brief scene of Frida, the crown princess who would rather be an engineer. There's been a suspicious accident that has cost her most of an arm and a good part of her other hand, and also has killed her mother. And so she's a young and vulnerable queen and has been having a really bad week, shall we say. Uh, in this scene, she has had a fight with her grandmother, who is the dowager and regent, and just is stepped out onto this balcony overlooking one of the agoras of her latitude town, and just she has a chance to reflect. So Frida watched the people move across the agora below. Families, couples, single workers walking beneath the portraits of Queens Beatrix and Adelaide, through the hiss of static from the memorial display showing the lost signal of Earth. Yet the messenger still runs. People keep going to work. Life goes on. I'd hate to think that I'd hate that. We're still moving even 50 years after the Earth fell silent, she thought. By rights, we shouldn't be here. Maybe, just maybe, I can do the same. Maybe I can find some sort of stability after this disaster. She pushed away from the railing. Let's go to bed. Across the Royal Agora, the display flickered, a hiss stuttered, then a voice issued from the speakers. Hello? Frida turned. Did I just see that? Did I just hear that? In the Agora, people looked around, confused. Above them, the display below the screen counted up the time since the last signal from Earth had been received. 49 years, 9 months, 4 days, 23 hours, 52 minutes, 27 seconds, 8, 28, 29, 30. The live feed flickered again. Hello, Mercury, the voice echoed. This is Earth. Frida's jaw dropped. Mercury, are you receiving this? Please respond. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could picture myself in part of that, just listening to the, trying to get myself physically into that area. So yeah, you captured me on that one. I'll tell you that for sure.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before we get into wrapping up the thing, I wanted to do two things real quick. Number one, what do you do for fun?
I mean, I do have a lot of other hobbies. My family has joked that it was only a matter of time that I would create a story with trains in them, like Sunrunners, because I've always had a love of trains and public transit. So quite often when I go visit cities, I go ride their subways and streetcars just to see what they're like. And other than that, I read. I make sure I read my errand to bed at the end of the day, and otherwise we have our hands full, sort of taking care of our teenage kids, cooking, cleaning, and everything else, and running around after our 2 cats and our dog Luna. So, yeah.
And Erin, your wife, is also an author too. How many books has she written?
Well, she has written, the number escapes me off the top of my head, but 3 books of poetry, a memoir, and 5 books for kids, some young adult fantasy, some contemporary. Her most recent novel, Simon Sort of Says, was nominated received a Newbery honor this past year. So we were down at San Diego for the American Librarians Association conference, and we're really proud of that. And I'm really proud of her. So she and I, we're partners in crime when it comes to writing, and I'm really pleased to have her support when I'm writing.
How do people get your books?
Well, I am available on Amazon. Look for James Bow. Also, you can check out your local independent bookstore. These books are distributed through Literary Press Canada. I'm also available through my publisher Shadowpaw Press. So look for look up Shadowpaw Press, and you can order it direct from them. It's available in print and in EPUB. So no matter how you like your books, they're available somewhere. And if you do read it and like it, please leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads or on your website or in your social media feed, because more than the royalty statements, the thing that I think authors really like is to know that their books are being read and are being appreciated by readers. And so we would really love to hear from you.
Well, thank you, James, for our audio audience. James Bow. It's B-O-W, James, James, Bow again, BOW.ca.
Yes.
So please check out his website. And James, thank you so very much for your time today. I look forward. I'm sure we'll bump into each other in the future. You just never know. So take care. Enjoy the light, snowy dusting of snow up there in your area, and we'll catch you later on. Take care.
Right. Thank you very much.
And this is Red O'Loughlin concluding on the Corner Bookstore today. Immediately following this show in about 20 minutes is The Wise Ones. And today I have Glenda Benavides that will be on the show with me. And then immediately following that, Talking Heads, and I'll be talking about a healthy lifestyle today. So with that, I bid you adieu, and we'll catch you next week. Bye now.